Hello, my name is LaChan Hannon. I am the Director of Teacher Preparation and Innovation at Rutgers Newark in the Department of Urban Education. Today, I wanted to talk to you a little bit about why bilingualism matters and what we as teachers and teacher educators can do to support students' bilingualism. So, in today's session, we're going to talk about a few things. Why bilingualism helps us learn about people and culture. What is bilingual, bicultural education? How is bilingualism an asset to all students? And how can you make a difference? I wanted to give you a little bit of history about me. For 15 years, I was a high school English teacher, uh, seeing all different kinds of students, from bilingual to monolingual to multilingual. Um, and I bring that knowledge to this conversation. So, any good teacher knows that you have to be a good storyteller. So, I'm going to start you off with a story. When I was in high school, I studied French because in New Jersey, everyone's required to study a foreign language. When I went to college, I had the opportunity to study French there as well, because you have to take a language requirement. So, junior year, I decided to put my language skills to the test and study abroad in Paris. I could read French, I could speak French, I could write in French, but I couldn't have a conversation. And for the first 2 weeks, I was absolutely petrified. My host family didn't speak much English. I was with another exchange student, and she was from New Jersey. Um, in 2 weeks, I did not talk. I was afraid of being wrong. I was afraid of being right. And I was quite honestly just afraid until I was put in I was put in an opportunity to be welcomed and be affirmed regardless of whether I was right or I was wrong. And I learned something about myself and the value of creating affirming and welcoming environment for students, especially students who are separated from their community or separated from their language. So let's talk about what is communication really, right? So, one definition or explanation of communication is it's the ability for people to understand what is being conveyed. There's something reciprocal about it. If I'm communicating to you, but you're not understanding what I'm saying, then the likelihood is that we're actually not communicating. Communication can use all or any of our senses. So much of our communication is verbal, but so much more of our communication is nonverbal. And communication is certainly, and language is certainly a way that connects people with language and with culture. So, what I would like for you to do is just to take a few minutes to list some of the ways that you communicate that don't actually involve speaking. I know for me, sometimes that could be an eye roll, that could be a hand up, that could be a gesture, that could be a noise that I make. Mm-hmm. Right, I understand. All of these are ways of communicating. So, why does bilingualism help us learn about people and culture? And this is something that I want you to think about. Is how does bilingualism help us to learn about people and a culture? When I was in France, I learned a lot about tone and how people use certain words or how people use certain slang. I said before that I didn't know how to have a conversation. I could read a book, but I couldn't talk to anyone, um, because I could not communicate them in a way that was how they were used to being communicated with, and that took time. That took effort, that took energy, but it also took time for me to make mistakes. When you think about people and you think about a culture and you think about language, If you separate people from their language, you are separating them from their culture. You're separating them from their community. So as we think about students who are English language learners, who we don't allow them to use their first language in order to help make sense of things, we are really disconnecting them and making them feel less welcome, less affirmed, and less invited. Did you know that the United States does not have a language that has actually been established by Congress? So English is not the United States language. English is one of the languages that we speak, but we absolutely do prioritize that. And we need to think about what that means in a socio-political context, what that means for the students that we're engaging in, what that means for students who have multiple language, where English might even be their third or maybe even their fourth language, right? We know that we have high school graduation requirements that require a language, but yet at the same time, we require Spanish-speaking students to take a Spanish class, right? And so we have to really think about what this means and how we're prioritizing English and oftentimes deprioritizing other students' first languages. So take a look at this. This is a list of the top languages spoken in the United States. Yes, English is first, we can expect that, but there are so many others that I don't know that we give enough consideration to, especially as we're thinking about the students that we teach and the students that we interact with. New Jersey has the fourth highest number of immigrant students in the United States. And New Jersey at the same time is also one of the most segregated schools, has the most segregated schools in the United States. So when we're thinking about what it means for immigrant students and students who have a first language other than English, we can really see how separating it can be and how separating it can be for the students. I want to show you just a short video that really talks about how we can leverage, it's a fun video, just about language, but I use it because I want to talk about how important it is for us to leverage students' first language in order to help understand a second.
Este es el león. El león está cansado. Está cansado. El león duerme. Este es el ratón. El ratón está durmiendo. El ratón se despierta. Al león le gusta dormir en todas partes. Por allí. Por aquí. Por allí. Por aquí. Al ratón le gusta bailar. Al ratón le gusta bailar en todas partes. Por aquí. Por allí. Por aquí. Por allí. El baile del ratón despierta al león.
So I wanted to know what helped you, or what did you notice that helped you understand the meanings of any of the unfamiliar words? There was music, there were pictures, there were alarm clocks, there was animation, and I show this video to really talk and to kind of highlight the ways that integrating second language can be helpful for our students whose first language is not English. So, what is bilingual bicultural education? Bilingual education is the process of teaching students using two languages. Having said that, I do not consider myself a bilingual person. I do have an appreciation for bilingual education and the ways that it can connect people to one another, and the ways that it can be used to expand one's understanding of what's being communicated. But it doesn't mean that I have to alienate myself from some of the strategies, right? You'd be surprised how many students in your class may already be bilingual. That can be a support to you as a teacher who might be monolingual, right? So our students come with assets. Our students come with so much knowledge that we don't know about. And so our job is to really be able to use and leverage that. So if bilingual education is the process of teaching students using two languages, there are three main types of bilingual bicultural education. So one is the traditional way, right? So this type of bilingual education is really designed to help students who are learning a new language pick it up quicker and make the transition to begin learning math or science or other subjects in English. So the students would begin receiving instruction in their native language and eventually become weaned off of it to begin to learn entirely of English. Having said that, it does not necessarily actively preserve the first language. It is used as a conduit to get to English. Then you have dual language immersion. So these programs are actually intended to assist English and non-English speaking students to learn and speak and write in a second language. So that would be English students speaking English, learning to write in another, and non-English speaking students learning to write in English, all happening within the same classroom, right? So in the United States, most students enrolled in the dual language immersion programs will be in like a 50-50 mix of English and Spanish speaking students. These programs are not necessarily very popular in the United States, but research has shown that non-English speaking students taking advantage of these programs effectively learn how to write and speak in English. And not only do non-English speakers benefit from these programs, but English speakers do as well, because they're learning and they're completely immersed in both languages at the same time. Then we have developmental bicultural education or bilingual education, where students are taught in the native language for a period of time while simultaneously they are learning a new language. This way, students improve literacy in their first language, so helping to maintain that first language, which is possible then to add the second language, which would be English. So how is bilingualism an asset to all students? Well, we know that when you separate a person from their language, you are separating them from their culture. So allowing students to keep their language is actually affirming them and their culture, okay? So if we say we're going to value diversity and we say we're going to value students' culture and be culturally responsive in the ways that we teach, we have to do things that are affirming and welcoming and inviting for them. And one of those things is allowing students to keep and demonstrate their L1, their language. We also know that it increases empathy. Once you learn more about a person, that increases empathy towards that person, increases understanding. On an academic side, it actually focuses attention, right? Bilingualism focuses attention on having to navigate those two skills at the same time. It improves reading in English, and ultimately, it impacts school performance. So, what are some things that you can do to make a difference in your classrooms, for you and your students, and for the students that you're preparing to be future educators? Use your students as cultural brokers. All right, your students are so capable of using the language assets, the cultural assets they have in order to navigate that space and to bring other students along with them. Right? We don't have to know everything as teachers and teacher educators. What we do have to know is how to use the resources that are available to us, and our students are just that. So use them as cultural brokers to help bridge those gaps. You can allow students to write and explain things in their native language, also while using your cultural brokers. I have a student teacher who was teaching math, and her idea of grouping was she has quite a few English language learners in her class. Her idea was to break them up with the English speaking students in groups so that they could learn so that the student could learn English better, when actually what might have been more helpful was for her to actually keep her English language students together and add someone who was a cultural broker who can help to bridge that gap. Because as the teacher, she was not necessarily a Spanish speaker, but she had other students in the class who were already bilingual and already proficient in that language. So we can also provide access to digital dictionaries and resources for students to help do that. And like I just said, we can keep L1, so first language students, paired together, right? So that they can provide supports to one another and make sense. So there's two components here. There's about learning content, and there's about learning English. And it's easier to learn the content when you can do it in a language that you're more fluent and that you're more proficient in. And so we have to keep this in mind when we're dealing with students and when we're educating students and preparing students to become educators, about how we can leverage students' first language when it's not English, and first language when it is English. And lastly, here are some other ways that you can make a difference. If you are interested in learning more about bilingual and bicultural education and English as a second language, at Rutgers Newark, we have a brand new program that we've just rolled out specifically for teachers that leads to endorsements for teacher certification. And for students, we have brand new majors that are coming out. We have a Bachelor's of Arts in Urban Secondary Education, so really focusing on the needs of students in urban areas. And we know that with New Jersey having the fourth largest population of immigrant students, they're mostly condensed to our urban schools. So providing our already bilingual high school students the opportunity to leverage their bilingualism is going to be a huge asset to who our teachers are in the future and moving forward, and what they're able to do for the students who are in schools now and who will be coming. Additionally, we're going to be offering a Bachelor's of Arts strictly in English as a second language and bilingual education. And so this really gives our students a firm grip, a firm understanding of what bicultural education is, how to do it. They both lead to teacher certification in that area, in addition to middle school endorsements and content areas. So not only are our teachers going to be content area specialists, but they will also be specialists in understanding and educating students for English as a second language, and for our bilingual and our multilingual students, really providing bilingual and bicultural education, which we know are areas that the NJDOE has established as in need of significant growth because of teacher shortage in that area. And lastly, we have coming out soon is our 5-year program for our BA MAT in Urban Secondary Education, which actually embeds its content area specialty, so your math, your science, your world languages, and your humanities, in addition to the ESL and bilingual education major certification. I just wanted to say thank you. You can make a difference by having your students reach out to us at Rutgers Newark. We can always be found at urbaned.rutgers.edu. Newark, urbaned.newark.rutgers.edu, or email us at urbaned@newark.rutgers.edu. So thank you again. My name is LaChan Hannon. I am the Director of Teacher Preparation and Innovation, and I appreciate being able to share this information with you today.